6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442b, the galaxy had changed forever. Word of humanity's victory over the supposedly invincible Veltari Empire spread to every corner of civilized space. Species that had lived under imperial domination for centuries began to whisper about rebellion. The age of Veltari supremacy was ending. Captain G1 stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned TDF Sol's Honor, named after the colony that had been destroyed in the First Contact War. The ship was one of 50 new warships that Earth had constructed in the months since learning about the hostile galaxy that surrounded them. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command," reported her new communications. Officer Youngsu, Admiral Kyungsu's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but satisfied. The past 6 months had been the busiest in human history as Earth prepared for the reality of galactic politics backed by military force. "Captain G1, how is the patrol going?" "Quiet, Admiral. We've encountered 3 different alien species in the past month. All of them were eager to establish peaceful relations with humanity. Word of our capabilities seems to have spread. Good. The diplomatic corps tells me we're receiving treaty requests from over 50 different civilizations. Everyone wants to be on good terms with the species that defeated the Veltari." Ji-Wan nodded, but she felt a nagging concern. "What about the Veltari themselves, Admiral?" "Intelligence reports suggest they're rebuilding their fleet." Admiral Kyungsu's expression grew serious. "They are, but they're also dealing with rebellions on a dozen worlds. It seems that species they conquered are no longer afraid to fight back, now that they know the Empire can be beaten." The truth was even more complex than either human officer realized. Across the galaxy, the Battle of Kepler 442b had become legend. The story grew with each telling, but the core message remained the same. A tiny human exploration ship had fought impossible odds and survived long enough for reinforcements to arrive and destroy an entire Veltari fleet. On the planet Zephyr Prime, the native Kethlar people had risen against their Veltari occupiers. Their primitive energy weapons were no match for Imperial technology, but they fought with a determination that their conquerors had never seen before. When captured, Kethlar fighters would tell their interrogators, "If humans can defeat you, with metal and fire, so can we." On the mining world of Asteroid 7 Alpha, enslaved workers had seized control of the orbital platforms and declared independence. They held their positions for 3 weeks before Veltari reinforcements arrived, but the message had been sent. The Empire was no longer invincible. Admiral Kixval read the reports from his flagship, now patrolling the inner territories of the Empire. Rebellion was spreading like a plague across Imperial space. Worse, human ships were being reported in, systems far from their original territory. The species that had once been confined to a single star system was expanding rapidly. "Admiral, we have confirmation that human vessels are providing weapons and technical support to rebel factions," his new tactical officer reported. The original Zermoth had been executed for his failure at Kepler 442b. "What kind of support?" "Basic, kinetic weapons, similar to what their exploration ship used against us. Simple electromagnetic pulse devices. Nothing as advanced as their main battle fleet, but effective enough to give rebels a fighting chance against our patrol vessels." Admiral Kixval felt the bitter taste of irony. The humans were using the same strategy against the Veltari Empire that they had used against his fleet. They provided just enough help to let others fight their own battles while keeping their main forces in reserve. "What does High Command want us to do about these human incursions?" "Nothing, Admiral. The Supreme Commander has declared human territory off-limits to all Imperial forces. We are not to engage human vessels under any circumstances." The order stung, but Kixval understood the logic. The Eternal Dominion had barely escaped the Battle of Kepler 442b intact. Intelligence reports suggested that the TDF Incheon was only one of several massive human warships. A full-scale war with humanity would likely result in the complete destruction of the Veltari fleet. Captain Ji-Wan was reviewing similar intelligence reports aboard the Sol's Honor when her tactical officer Dong Jin called for her attention. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the Centauri system. It's from a Veltari civilian transport." Ji-Wan raised an eyebrow. Veltari civilians asking humans for help? That's new. The message says their ship is under attack by pirates from the Kethler Rebellion. They're requesting assistance from any nearby vessels. This was exactly the kind of situation that Earth Command had warned her about. The galaxy was becoming increasingly chaotic as the Veltari Empire lost control of its territories. Pirates, rebels, and opportunists were taking advantage of the power vacuum. Set course for the Centauri system. Maximum speed, Jiwan ordered. Send a message to the Veltari transport. Tell them help is on the way. Captain, are you sure? These are the same aliens who destroyed New Sol Colony. Jiwan thought about that for a long moment. The Veltari Empire had committed genocide against human civilians. But the beings on that transport were not soldiers or conquerors. They were civilians in danger. The war was with the Veltari military, not their civilians, she said finally. We don't abandon people in distress regardless of their species. The Sol's Honor dropped out of hyperspace to find a Veltari passenger liner under attack by 3 Kethlar raiders. The alien pirates were using crude energy weapons to disable the transport's engines while preparing to board and loot the vessel. This is Captain Jiwan of the Terran Defense Force, she broadcast on all frequencies. You're attacking a civilian vessel in violation of interstellar law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Kethlar raiders ignored the warning and continued their attack. Captain Jiwan sighed and nodded to her tactical officer. The Sol's Honor's weapons were not as powerful as the TDF Inchons, but they were more than sufficient to deal with pirates. 3 precisely aimed particle beam shots disabled the raider ships without destroying them. The pirates found themselves drifting in space with dead engines and no weapons, their crews unharmed but thoroughly defeated. Kethlar vessels, you are free to leave in your escape pods, G1 transmitted. But if we catch you attacking civilian ships again, the next encounter will not be so gentle. The grateful Veltari captain requested permission to come aboard the human vessel to thank his rescuers in person. Captain Jiwan agreed, curious to meet one of the beings she had fought so desperately against 6 months earlier. The Veltari civilian was smaller than Admiral Kixaval had been, with lighter-colored skin and fewer ceremonial markings. When he spoke, his voice carried none of the arrogance that had characterized the Imperial Admiral. Captain Jiwan, I am Transport Captain Vexnil. I owe you and your crew a debt that can never be repaid. You owe us nothing, Captain. We help anyone in distress regardless of their species. Even after what our military did to your colony? Jiwan studied the alien captain carefully. Your military committed a terrible crime. But you are not your military, just as we are not, defined by the worst actions of human history. The question is, what kind of galaxy do we build from here? Captain Vexenil was quiet for a long moment. My passengers are scientists and teachers fleeing the chaos in Imperial space. They want to study in neutral territories, to learn from other species rather than conquering them. Perhaps they could learn something from humans about how to coexist peacefully. Perhaps they could, G1 agreed. And perhaps humans could learn something from them as well. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, if we're willing to share it. As the 2 ships parted ways, both captains knew they had witnessed something historic. For the first time since the war began, humans and Veltari had worked together instead of fighting. It was a small step, but it pointed toward a future where the galaxy might be governed by cooperation rather than conquest. The age of human expansion had begun not with invasion and destruction, but with the simple principle that had always defined the best of human nature. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is help someone who needs it, even if they used to be your enemy. In the months that followed, more and more species would discover what the Veltari had learned at Kepler 442b. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had brought with them ideas that would change everything. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kixaval stared at the massive human warship that had just arrived in the system. The TDF Incheon dwarfed even his flagship, and its hull bristled with weapons he didn't recognize. For 300 years, the Veltari Empire had been the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Now he faced a species that might actually be more dangerous. Admiral Kyung-Su, I am Admiral Kixval of the Veltari Empire, he transmitted. You are interfering in Imperial business. These humans attacked our vessels without provocation. The response came back immediately, and Admiral Kyung-soo's voice carried the authority of someone who had never backed down from a fight. Admiral, our records show that you destroyed a peaceful civilian colony before Captain Ji-won ever fired a shot. Your empire may be used to bullying weaker species, but humanity doesn't surrender to anyone. You cannot match the power of the Veltari Empire, Kixval replied, though he was no longer entirely certain of that claim. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Our technology has been perfected over centuries of warfare. Your technology is impressive, Admiral Kyung-soo admitted, but you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that bigger and more advanced always wins. Humans have learned something different from our history. Sometimes the best technology loses to better tactics. The TDF Incheon began moving toward the Veltari fleet, and Admiral Kixval got his first close look at human military engineering. The ship's hull was not smooth and curved like Veltari vessels. Instead, it was angular and covered in armor plating that could absorb tremendous punishment. Weapon ports lined every surface, suggesting firepower that could devastate entire fleets. Zermoth, analysis of the human warship, Kixval ordered. His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. Admiral, that vessel appears to be built like a fortress. Its armor is thicker than our heaviest cruisers. I count at least 200 weapon systems, including some that operate on principles I don't recognize. What about its weaknesses? Admiral, I cannot detect any obvious vulnerabilities. This ship appears designed by beings who have studied warfare for a very long time. Captain Ji-won watched from the Soul's Pride as the two most powerful warships in the galaxy prepared to face each other. Her damaged vessel was now just an observer to a battle that would determine the future of human expansion into space. Captain, Admiral Kyung-soo is requesting a private channel, reported Communications Officer Suji. Put him through. Admiral Kyung-soo's face appeared on the main screen. He looked exactly like what he was, a career military officer who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Captain Ji-won, you and your crew have performed beyond all expectations. Your tactical innovations will be studied at the Naval Academy for generations. Thank you, Admiral. But I'm not sure we did enough damage to matter. You did something more important than damage, Captain. You proved that the Veltari can be hurt by human ingenuity. Every civilization in the galaxy will learn about this. Battle. The age of unopposed Veltari expansion is over. The private channel closed as Admiral Kyung-soo prepared to demonstrate exactly what humanity had learned from centuries of warfare. The TDF Incheon's weapon systems came online, revealing capabilities that made the Soul's Pride's railgun look like a child's toy. Antimatter torpedoes that could vaporize asteroids launched from the human warship's forward tubes. Particle beam, weapons that operated on principles the Veltari had never encountered, began charging to full power. Most terrifying of all, the Incheon deployed gravity manipulation technology that could create localized space-time distortions. Admiral Kixval realized he was facing weapons that his shields and armor had never been designed to stop. The Veltari Empire had grown powerful by perfecting bio-neural technology and quantum energy weapons. But humans had taken a different path, mastering the fundamental forces of physics and turning them into instruments of war. All ships, open, fire, Kixval ordered. Concentrate all weapons on the human flagship. The 3 Veltari vessels unleashed their full firepower. Quantum cannons that could crack planets fired in perfect synchronization. Bioplasma weapons that consumed matter at the molecular level lanced across space. Energy beams that existed, in 11 dimensions, simultaneously struck the human warship. The TDF Incheon's shields flared with brilliant light as they absorbed the assault. But when the energy faded, the human ship remained intact and undamaged. Its armor had been designed to withstand anything the galaxy could throw at it. Impossible, breathed Zermoth. No ship can survive our combined firepower. Admiral Kyung-soo's voice came across the communication channel, calm and professional. Your weapons are impressive, Admiral Kixval. Now let me show you what humans have learned from fighting each other for thousands of years. The Incheon's response was swift and devastating. Antimatter torpedoes struck the damaged Veltari cruiser, completely vaporizing its forward sections. Particle beams punched through, biometal armor like it was made of paper. Most shocking of all, the human ship's gravity weapons began tearing the Veltari vessels apart at the molecular level. Admiral Kixaval watched in horror as his escort ships were systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to ignore every law of physics he understood. The humans were not just more advanced than he had thought. They were using technology that approached the theoretical limits of what was possible. Admiral, our bio-neural networks cannot calculate defensive solutions for their weapons, Zermoth reported with panic in his voice. These humans fight with forces that exist outside our understanding of warfare. How many ships does their fleet contain? Kixaval demanded. Admiral, sensors show only one human warship. Kixaval felt something he had not experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Fear. A single human vessel was destroying his entire fleet with casual efficiency. If this was what one of their ships could do, what would happen when their full fleet arrived? The second Veltari cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash of light as its reactor core overloaded under the human assault. Only the Eternal Dominion remained, and its biometal hull was already showing signs of damage from weapons that seemed designed by gods of war. Admiral Kyung-soo, Kixaval transmitted, I request terms for surrender. The human admiral's response was immediate and non-negotiable. There are no terms, Admiral. You destroyed a peaceful human colony without provocation. You threatened the lives of human explorers. You have shown that the Veltari Empire cannot coexist peacefully with other species. What do you want from us? Withdraw from all human territories immediately. Any Veltari ship found in human space will be destroyed without warning. Your empire's expansion is over, Admiral. Find somewhere else to conquer, or learn to live in peace. Admiral Kixaval looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They had served the Empire faithfully for centuries, believing in Veltari superiority over all other species. Now they faced the reality that they had encountered beings who were not only their equals, but possibly their superiors in the art of war. All remaining ships withdraw from the system, he ordered. As the Eternal Dominion limped away from the battlefield, Admiral Kixaval sent one final message to the human fleet. This is not over, Admiral Kyung-soo. The Veltari Empire will not forget this defeat. I hope not, came the reply, because the next time you attack humans, we'll be ready for you. The Soul's Pride limped through space as the 2 remaining Veltari ships moved to surround it. Captain Jiwon's gambit had succeeded beyond all expectations, but success might only delay their destruction by a few minutes. The damaged enemy cruiser was already beginning repairs while its companions prepared to avenge their wounded pride. Captain, I'm detecting massive power buildup in both remaining ships, reported Tactical Officer Minho. They're charging weapons powerful enough to vaporize us completely. How long before they can fire? Jiwon asked. 3 minutes, maybe less. Engineer Hana looked up from her console with grim news. Captain, our main reactor is failing. The power overload damaged too many systems. We have maybe 2 minutes of maneuvering before we lose engines completely. Admiral Kixaval stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his 6 eyes focused on the small human vessel. The damage to his escort cruiser had shocked him more than any event in his 3-century career. These primitives had actually hurt a ship of the Imperial fleet. Zermoth, I want that human vessel captured intact, he ordered. I must understand how they penetrated our defenses with such primitive weapons. Admiral, our standard procedure is complete destruction of hostile vessels. These are not standard opponents. They fight in ways our tactical computers cannot predict. I want their captain alive for interrogation. Perhaps we can learn something useful before we eliminate their species entirely. Captain Jiwon realized she had one final card to play, but it would require revealing secrets that Earth Command had hoped to keep hidden for decades. The Soul's Pride was not just an exploration vessel, it was humanity's first deep space intelligence gathering platform, disguised to look harmless while studying potential threats beyond the Sol system. Hana, activate the Prometheus package. Engineer Hana's hands froze over her controls. Captain, those systems are classified beyond top secret. Earth Command will court-martial us if we reveal their existence. Earth Command will understand if it keeps us alive long enough to warn them about this threat. Do it. Hana entered a complex authorization code that she had memorized but hoped never to use. Hidden systems throughout the Soul's Pride began to activate. Components that had been disguised as scientific equipment revealed their true military purpose. The atmospheric processors were actually advanced electronic warfare suites capable of disrupting enemy communications and sensors. The geological survey equipment included military-grade targeting computers that could calculate firing solutions for weapons the Veltari had never encountered. The communication arrays housed quantum entanglement transmitters that had been sending real-time battle data directly to Earth's Defense Command. Suji, patch me into the quantum communication system. Priority Alpha emergency transmission to Earth Defense Command. Communications Officer Suji's eyes widened as she realized the implications. Captain, if we use quantum entanglement communication, Earth will receive our message instantly across any distance, but the power requirements will drain our remaining reserves completely. Do it. Earth needs to know what we're facing. The message that reached Earth Defense Command was brief, but devastating. This is Captain G1, Soul's Pride. We have encountered hostile alien empire with ships kilometers in length and weapons beyond our technology. They have destroyed New Soul Colony. We are engaging but expect total loss. Enemy shows no interest in negotiation. Prepare Earth's defenses immediately. This is a threat to human survival. On Earth, Admiral Kyungsu received the message in his office at Defense Command headquarters. Within minutes, every human warship in the Sol system was moving to battle stations. The TDF Incheon, humanity's most powerful vessel, began immediate preparations for an emergency hyperspace jump to the Kepler system. Back in the battle zone, the Soul's Pride was revealing capabilities that shocked the Veltari observers. Electronic warfare systems that had been hidden in the ship's scientific equipment began disrupting the alien ship's bio-neural networks. The Veltari found their targeting computers confused by signals they had never encountered. Admiral, the human vessel is broadcasting some kind of interference pattern, Zurmoth reported with growing concern. Our bio-neural systems are having difficulty processing the signals. It's like they're speaking in a language our computers cannot understand. Admiral Kixval watched his tactical displays flicker with static. The human ship was somehow jamming sensors that had worked perfectly for centuries. How is this possible? Their technology is primitive. Admiral, I believe, they have been deceiving us. This vessel may not be as simple as it appears. Captain G1 smiled grimly as she watched the Veltari ship struggle with the electronic warfare assault. Humanity had spent decades preparing for the possibility of encountering hostile aliens. While they hoped for peaceful contact, they had learned from their own history that sometimes the only way to ensure peace was to be very good at war. Minho, do we have any weapons left? The railgun is completely destroyed, Captain, but I'm reading some interesting energy patterns in the alien ships. Their bio-neural systems seem vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. Can we overload our reactor to create a localized electromagnetic pulse? Engineer Hana ran quick calculations. Yes, but it would mean abandoning ship. The pulse would fry every electronic system on our vessel, including life support. How big an area would the pulse affect? At least 10,000 kilometers radius. It would disrupt any bio-neural system within that range. Jawan looked around, her bridge at the faces of her crew. They understood what she was considering. A deliberately triggered reactor overload would destroy their ship and likely kill them all, but it might also cripple the alien vessels long enough for Earth to prepare. Its defenses. Captain, Suji interrupted, I'm detecting a massive hyperspace signature approaching the system. Something very large is about to arrive. The space near Kepler 442b suddenly erupted with energy as a ship dropped out of hyperspace. But this was not another exploration vessel. The TDF Incheon stretched 20 kilometers from bow to stern, its angular hull bristling with weapons that made the Veltari ships look small by comparison. Admiral Kixval stared at the new arrival with something approaching fear. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never seen a vessel that large or obviously designed for warfare. The newcomer's hull was covered in weapon ports, sensor arrays, and armor plating that looked thick enough to stop his quantum cannons. Zurmoth analyzed that vessel immediately. "Admiral, my sensors are having difficulty penetrating its armor, but the energy readings suggest weapons and defenses far beyond anything we have encountered. That ship appears designed for one purpose only: total warfare." The communication channel crackled to life as Admiral Kyung-soo of the TDF Incheon addressed both the Soul's Pride and the Veltari fleet. "This is Admiral Kyung-soo of the Terran Defense Force. Captain Ji-won, well done. You've given us the intelligence we needed and bought us the time to respond." Then his voice turned cold as he addressed the alien ships. "Admiral Kixval of the Veltari Empire, you have attacked human civilians and threatened one of our vessels. This constitutes an act of war against humanity. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system or face the consequences." Admiral Kixval realized that he had made a terrible mistake. These humans had not sent a weak exploration ship to face his fleet. They had sent bait to draw him into revealing his capabilities while their real warship approached unseen. For the first time in 3 centuries, a Veltari admiral faced an enemy that might actually be more dangerous than his own forces. Captain Ji-won had 30 seconds to find a way to damage ships that outgunned her vessel by 1,000 to 1. The Soul's Pride carried only a single railgun designed for clearing space debris, not fighting wars. The Veltari ships bristled, with weapons that could crack moons in half. But Ji-won had studied every major battle in human history during her years at the Academy. From ancient naval warfare to modern space conflicts, humans had always found ways to win when victory seemed impossible. The key was never to fight the enemy's strength, always attack their weakness. "Hana, reroute all power from life support and artificial gravity to the railgun," she ordered. "We only need to breathe for the next few minutes." "Captain, that will give us maybe 3 shots before the system overloads," Engineer Hana replied as her fingers flew over the controls. "That's 3 more shots than most people get against impossible odds. Minho, I need firing solutions, but not for the alien ships." Tactical Officer Minho looked confused. "Captain, if we're not targeting the enemy vessels, what are we shooting at?" "The asteroid field beyond them. I need you to hit specific rocks with maximum kinetic energy. Can you do it?" Minho studied his sensors, analyzing the dense field of space debris that surrounded the system. "Yes, Captain, but I don't understand how that helps us." "Trust me. Suji, I need you to start broadcasting on all frequencies. Make it sound like we're calling for help, but use the emergency codes we learned in survival training." Communications Officer Suji nodded, though she looked as confused as Minho. "What kind of help message, Captain?" "Tell anyone listening that we're under attack by hostile aliens. Give them our position. Make it sound desperate." Admiral Kixval watched the human ship with growing amusement. The tiny vessel had turned to face his fleet, but instead of targeting his warships, it seemed to be aiming at empty space. His tactical officer confirmed that the humans were preparing to fire at asteroids. "They have lost their minds with fear," Zuramoth reported. "Their weapon systems are targeting random debris. They are also broadcasting distress calls, but no other ships are within range to help them." "Fascinating," Kixval mused. "I have never seen a species panic so completely when faced with superior force. Let us watch them waste their ammunition on rocks before we destroy them." The Soul's Pride fired its first shot. The tungsten slug accelerated to 15% of light speed, carrying more kinetic energy than a nuclear bomb. It struck a metallic asteroid the size of a city block, shattering it into thousands of high-velocity fragments. Minho fired again immediately, hitting a second asteroid rich in volatile compounds. The explosion sent debris racing in all directions. A third shot struck an ice-covered rock, creating a cloud of superheated steam and metal fragments. "Captain, I still don't see how this helps us," Minho said as he prepared the final shot. "Watch. They're ships," Ji-won replied calmly. Admiral Kixval was no longer amused. The expanding debris field was creating sensor interference that his bio-neural computers couldn't compensate for. Chunks of metal and ice were moving at dangerous speeds throughout the area. His ships, designed for clean battles in open space, found their targeting systems confused by the chaotic environment. "Zurmoth, Why are our sensors having difficulty locking onto the human vessel? The debris is creating multiple false readings, Admiral. Our bio-neural networks are designed to track energy signatures and movement patterns. This random scatter of high-speed fragments is overloading our targeting computers. Then clear the debris field with our weapons. Admiral, if we fire our quantum cannons into that debris cloud, the explosions will create even more interference. We risk damaging our own sensors. Captain Jiwan smiled as she watched the alien ships struggle to adapt. Human military doctrine emphasized fighting in any environment using every available advantage. The Veltari, despite their advanced technology, had grown used to battles fought according to civilized rules. All power to engines, she ordered. Take us into the debris field, maximum maneuverability. The Soul's pride dove into the chaos it had created. Chunks of asteroid bounced off its reinforced hull as Hana pushed the engines beyond safe limits. The ship twisted and turned through the debris like a fighter plane dancing between skyscrapers. Admiral Kixaval watched in disbelief as the primitive human vessel disappeared into the sensor-masking cloud of debris. His advanced warships, each one a masterpiece of Imperial engineering, could barely track the much smaller target. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are using primitive technology. Our sensors should be able to track anything." "Admiral, their ship is designed differently than ours. It appears built for operations in hazardous environments. Their hull can withstand impacts that would damage our sensor arrays. They are using the debris field like cover." The Soul's pride emerged. From the debris cloud directly beneath the nearest Veltari cruiser, at point-blank range, Minho fired their overloaded railgun directly into the alien ship's underside. The tungsten slug, moving at incredible speed, punched through the biometal hull like a needle through fabric. It struck something vital inside, the massive vessel. Explosions rippled along the cruiser's length as internal systems failed in cascade. "Impossible," Zermuth screamed. "Our adaptive armor should have stopped that primitive projectile." "Their weapon doesn't use energy," Admiral Kixval realized. "Our armor adapts to quantum weapons and plasma cannons. It was never designed to stop solid objects moving at relativistic speeds." The damaged cruiser began to list as its bio-neural control systems failed. Emergency lighting flickered along its hull as automated repair systems tried to compensate for the damage. For the first time in 3 centuries, a Veltari warship had been hurt by an inferior opponent. Captain Jiwan felt no satisfaction at the sight. Her ship's railgun was completely burned out. Her engines were running on fumes. Her crew was exhausted and scared. They had managed to damage 1 enemy vessel, but 2 more remained, and both were now taking the human threat seriously. "Captain, the other 2 ships are moving to flank us," Minho reported. "They're not underestimating us anymore." "And our railgun is completely dead," Hana added. "We've got maybe 5 minutes of engine power left." Jiwan studied the tactical display, looking for any other advantage she could exploit. The debris field was dispersing. The element of surprise was gone. The Veltari had learned to respect human ingenuity, but she had bought something more valuable than a tactical victory. She had shown the galaxy that the mighty Veltari Empire could be hurt by a species they considered primitive. Word of this battle would spread to every civilization under Imperial control. "Suji, are you still broadcasting?" "Yes, Captain. All frequencies, maximum power." "Good. Make sure everyone in the galaxy knows what happened here today. Let them know that humans don't surrender even when facing impossible odds." The 2 remaining Veltari ships closed in for the kill, their weapons fully charged and ready. But Captain Jiwan had already achieved something no military commander had managed in 300 years. She had proven that the Veltari Empire could bleed. The Soul's pride dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. What Captain Jiwan saw through the main view screen made her blood run cold. The planet that had once been home to New Sol Colony was now a burning sphere of orange and red. Massive fires covered entire continents. The oceans boiled with steam. The atmosphere glowed with the heat of orbital bombardment. "My God," whispered Engineer Hana from her station. "They killed everyone." 3 alien ships hung in orbit around the dying world like vultures over carrion. Each vessel was enormous, stretching at least 8 kilometers from bow to stern. Their hulls looked almost alive, covered in smooth curves and flowing lines that pulsed with soft blue light. They moved through space with the grace of hunting predators. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships," reported Tactical Officer Minho. "Their power output is beyond anything in our databases. Each one of those vessels could destroy our entire fleet back home." Communications Officer Suji worked at her console, scanning through different frequencies. "Captain, I'm picking up alien communications. They're using some kind of bioneural transmission system. I can't understand the language, but the signals are incredibly complex." On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Kixval noticed the newcomer immediately. His sensors showed a tiny vessel that had just arrived at the system's edge. It was smaller than his escort ships and seemed to be powered by primitive technology. "Tactical Officer Zermoth, analyze that vessel," he ordered. Zermoth's multiple eyes studied the sensor readings. "Admiral, the ship measures approximately 800 meters in length. It appears to use fusion reactors for power. Its hull is made of basic metal alloys. I detect no advanced weapon systems, no quantum shielding, no bioneural networks. This technology is centuries behind our own." Admiral Kixval felt amused. In 300 years of conquest, he had never encountered a species primitive enough to challenge the Veltari Empire with such outdated technology. Most civilizations at least tried to use quantum weapons or energy shields. These creatures seemed to rely on nothing but metal and fire. "Are they scanning us?" Kixval asked. "Yes, Admiral. They are using basic electromagnetic sensors. Very crude. They probably cannot even penetrate our hull shielding to see our internal systems." "Interesting. Let us see what these primitive beings want. Perhaps they will provide some entertainment before we destroy them." Captain Jiwan stared at the alien ships, trying to understand what her crew was facing. The vessels were clearly far more advanced than anything humans had ever built, but she had a responsibility to try diplomatic contact before assuming hostile intent. "Suji, open a general communication channel, all frequencies." "Channel open, Captain." Jiwan took a deep breath. This could be humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. The moment would be recorded in history books forever, assuming anyone survived to write them. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Jiwan of the Terran Defense Force ship Soul's Pride. You are in the territory of the human colony of New Sol. We demand an explanation for the destruction of our settlement. Our people were peaceful civilians who posed no threat to anyone." The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. Seconds stretched into minutes. Finally, the main view screen flickered to life. The being that appeared was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Admiral Kixval stood nearly 3 meters tall on 4 powerful legs. His torso split into 4 arms, each ending in hands with too many fingers. His head was elongated and covered in bony ridges. His skin looked like polished metal that shifted colors in the light. But most disturbing were his eyes, 6 of them, that seemed to look right through the camera and into Jiwan's soul. When Admiral Kixval spoke, his voice came through as a series of harmonic vibrations that the translation systems barely managed to convert into human language. "I am Admiral Kixval of the Veltari Empire. Your people refused to surrender when offered the chance. They chose destruction over submission. Their fate was decided by their own foolish pride." "They were farmers and scientists," Jiwan replied, keeping her voice steady despite her growing anger. "They had no weapons, they couldn't have threatened anyone. All species must choose. Submit to imperial rule or face elimination. Your colonists chose poorly. You now have the same choice to make." Captain Jiwan felt her crew watching her. Minho had his hand near the weapons controls, though they all knew their single railgun would be useless against ships this size. Hana monitored their engines ready to run if ordered. Suji kept scanning for any weakness in the alien communications. "We are not your subjects," Jiwan said firmly. "We are representatives of the human species, and we do not submit to anyone. We demand that you withdraw from this system immediately." The sound that came from Admiral Kixval might have been laughter, though it sounded more like the groaning of stressed metal. Behind him, other Veltari officers made similar noises. The entire bridge seemed to vibrate with their amusement. Demand? Kixval repeated. You pilot a ship smaller than our escape pods, powered by technology we abandoned centuries ago, and you make demands of the Veltari Empire? I represent a species that has never surrendered to anyone, G1 replied. We have fought wars against impossible odds and won through determination and ingenuity. If you think we will bow down to you just because your ships are bigger, you have seriously underestimated humanity. Admiral Kixval studied the small human with growing curiosity. In 300 years, no species had ever spoken to him with such defiance, especially from such a position of weakness. Most civilizations begged for mercy once they saw the power of Imperial warships. These humans seemed either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. You amuse me, Captain G1. Very well. I will give you one chance to demonstrate this human determination you speak of. Attack my ships, show me this ingenuity that makes your species so special. When you fail, as you inevitably will, your ship will be destroyed and your species will learn the price of defying the Empire. And if we succeed, Jiwan asked, you will not succeed. But if by some miracle you damage even one of my vessels, I will consider opening formal negotiations, rather than simply eliminating your entire species. The communication ended. The view screen returned to showing the 3 massive alien warships as they began to move into attack formation. Their bioluminescent hulls pulsed brighter as weapon systems came online. Energy readings spiked across every sensor. Captain, those ships are charging weapons that could vaporize us in one hit, Minho reported. We have maybe 30 seconds before they open fire. Jiwan looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were afraid, but they trusted her to find a way out of this impossible situation. 200 lives depended on her next decision. All hands, battle stations, she announced over the ship's communication system. This is what we trained for. Show these aliens what humans can do when their backs are against the wall. The massive shadow of the Eternal Dominion blocked out 3 stars as it moved through space. Admiral Kixval stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another world burn below. The planet had once been home to billions of beings. Now, it was nothing but ash and glowing craters. Resistance eliminated, Admiral, reported his tactical officer. The creature's voice made a sound like grinding metal. No survivors detected. Kixval nodded with satisfaction. His forearms moved smoothly across the control surfaces, checking battle reports. The Veltari Empire had rules about conquered worlds. Any species that refused to surrender faced complete destruction. It was simple and effective. For 300 years, no one had been able to stand against Veltari power. Their ships were the size of cities. Their weapons could crack planets in half. Their computers could think faster than any living mind. Most importantly, they had never lost a single battle. The Eternal Dominion was 15 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide. Its biometal hull could heal itself from damage. Its quantum cannons could fire through solid matter. Its neural networks could control 1,000 different systems at once. No other ship in the galaxy came close to matching its power. Status report on the outer colonies, Kixval ordered. All target worlds have been pacified, Admiral. The new species in Sector 7 lasted only 6 hours. The mining worlds in Sector 12 surrendered without firing a shot. The trading posts in Sector 15 are requesting terms of submission. Kixval felt pleased. The galaxy was learning. Most species now gave up the moment they saw Veltari ships approaching. It saved time and resources. The Empire could focus on expanding into new regions rather than wasting ammunition on hopeless battles. Admiral, we are receiving a priority message from High Command. The main display showed the Supreme Commander of all Veltari forces. The ancient being had lived for over 8 centuries and commanded fleets that could destroy entire star systems. Admiral Kixval, you are to investigate new contacts in the Outer Rim. Unknown species have been detected establishing colonies beyond our current borders. Determine their military capacity and either secure their surrender or eliminate them entirely. Understood, Supreme Commander. What do we know about these newcomers? Very little. They appear to use primitive fusion technology. Their ships are small. Their weapons are basic projectile systems. They should pose no threat to your forces. However, they have been expanding rapidly. Stop them before they become a problem. The transmission ended. HFY studied the star charts showing the new species territories. They called themselves humans according to intelligence reports. They came from a system called Sol and had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. Their technology seemed hundreds of years behind Veltari standards. Set course for the human territories, HFY commanded. We will make an example of them. The galaxy will learn that expansion without imperial permission is not permitted. The Eternal Dominion changed direction, accompanied by its escort fleet. 2 heavy cruisers flanked the flagship, each one capable of destroying most civilizations single-handedly. Their mission would be simple and quick. Far across the galaxy, Captain Jiwan sat in the command chair of the Sol's Pride. Her ship was conducting routine survey missions in the outer territories, mapping new star systems and looking for suitable worlds for human colonization. The Sol's Pride was nothing like the massive Veltari warships. It measured only 800 meters from nose to tail. Its hull was made of simple titanium steel alloys. Its engines used basic fusion reactors that any first-year engineering student could understand. Its crew numbered only 200 people. But Captain Jiwan was proud of her ship and her crew. They had traveled farther from Earth than any humans before them. They had discovered 17 new worlds suitable for human settlement. They had made peaceful contact with 3 different alien species. They represented the best of human exploration and scientific achievement. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," reported Communications Officer Suji from her station. "It's coming from Kepler 442b. Jiwan knew that designation well. Kepler 442b hosted New Sol, one of humanity's first colonies outside the Sol system. 5,000 humans had volunteered to leave Earth forever to build a new life among the stars. They were farmers, engineers, teachers, and doctors who wanted to give their children unlimited opportunities. "Put it through," Jiwan ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was filled with terror and static. "This is Governor Park of New Sol Colony. Unknown alien vessels have entered our system. They are demanding our immediate surrender. We are a peaceful settlement with no military defenses. They are not responding to our attempts at communication. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help immediately." The signal cut to static. Suji worked frantically at her console trying to re-establish contact. "I'm sorry, Captain. The transmission just stopped. I can't raise them again." Tactical Officer Minho pulled up long-range sensor data. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures in the Kepler system. Whatever is happening there, it involves ships much larger than anything in our fleet." Engineer Hana looked up from her station. "Captain, New Sol has no defenses. They're scientists and farmers. If hostile aliens are attacking them, they have no way to protect themselves." Jiwan stared at the star chart showing the location of New Sol Colony. It was 3 days away at maximum speed. By the time they arrived, whatever was happening would already be over. Her ship carried only basic defensive systems. Her crew had never seen combat. She had no idea what kind of enemy they might face. But she also knew that 5,000 humans were depending on someone to help them. The Sol's Pride might be small and weak compared to unknown alien warships, but it was the only human vessel within range of the colony. "Hana, give me everything our engines can handle. Minho, analyze whatever sensor data we have on those alien ships. Suji, send a message back to Earth Command. Tell them what's happening and give them our current position." "Captain," Minho said, quietly, "if these aliens can destroy a colony that easily, what can we possibly do against them?" Jiwan looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were scared, but they were also determined. They understood that sometimes doing the right thing meant facing impossible odds. "We do what humans have always done," she replied. "We adapt, we improvise. We find a way to win even when winning seems impossible." The Sol's Pride changed course toward the Kepler system, racing through space to face an enemy they did not understand, with weapons they knew were inadequate, carrying the hopes of every human who believed that their species would never abandon its own people. Behind them, The stars seemed to dim as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen when an unstoppable force met an immovable human determination.